Good morning, New Life Church. So my name's Kevin, and this morning we are continuing our conversation about mental health, talking today about boundaries. And before I get started, I just want to let you know that pretty much everything I'm saying about boundaries, I have straight stolen and jacked from a guy named Dr. Henry Cloud. He has amazing resources, so if you want to dive further into this topic, please check out all his resources. But let's get started, and a picture is worth 1,000 words, so let's draw some things, okay? So take a look at this. The basic definition of a boundary is a property line, right? And a property line shows me this. It shows me what is mine and what is not mine. So you kind of get that idea, right? And a property line shows me what I own, right? What I own and what I don't own. It tells me what I control and what I don't control. It shows me what I'm responsible for and what I'm not responsible for, okay? And the thing is that even God sets boundaries. The crazy thing is that God gives you free choice. Now, somehow in his sovereignty, he understands how it all works out, and he's still able to steer the ship the direction that he wants to, but he has set this boundary of you get to choose, right? That's a boundary that he is, even in his sovereignty, that he has set, in that he will control this, but he won't control that. And so in addition to that, as he invites us to understand this idea of boundaries, he also says this in Proverbs 4, verse 23, guard your heart above all, for it determines the course of your life, right? Understanding where your heart is, your mind, the things you own, the things you control, the things you're responsible for, understand it and guard it. And here's why that's important. Let's go back to the drawing. The reason this is important is because you're not living by yourself. Instead, you have neighbors. And so it's important to know what you own and what they own, what you control and what they control, what you're responsible for and what they're responsible for. Because can you imagine if your neighbor decided that they were going to pick your wallpaper? Right? Like, number one, I can't believe they're picking wallpaper at all. And number two, they have the goal to try to control your wallpaper. Like, that goes against the boundaries that you've clearly set when you understand a physical property line. But what about this? What if also your neighbor demanded that you be responsible for taking care of their lawn? Like, we would be incensed. Like, that's insane. No, this boundary shows you that your lawn is your responsibility and that I have control of my own dang wallpaper. So are you beginning to get a sense? It's a little less clear when we're talking about personal boundaries, right? But I'm responsible for my choices. You're responsible for your choices. I get to own the things that I've purchased. You get to own the things you've purchased. There's boundaries. We have to understand what's mine and what's yours. The other reason that this is important is this, back to the drawing, is that this boundary is permeable. A door can open it up and I can decide what comes in to my boundary. And so basically, I get to choose who has influence over my decisions. I get to choose who has influence over my thoughts. I get to choose who gets to play with my stuff, right? Because boundaries are permeable and I get to decide who comes in and who gets to share my responsibility. I get to decide who I give influence in my life, and understanding that that boundary is my choice and that I get to set that boundary, that I get to decide those things, knowing what is mine and knowing what is not mine, what is somebody else's. It's huge and it's important, and it's important to our mental health because, again, I'm gonna guard my heart. Because what I let into my heart, which honestly we would use the word mind, what I let into my mind is going to impact the entire course and direction of my life. And so understanding that there's a boundary that I have control of, it is things that I own, it is things that I control, it is things that I'm responsible for. I get to make my decisions. I am in control of my feelings. I get to control my thoughts. I get to live my life and reap the consequences of my own behavior. That is the power of understanding boundaries. But I want to get practical just for one moment. And so I want to give you two practical things. The first one is this, is that the best thing that you can do to implement boundaries, there's no need for the exclamation point, but I like to put it, is the word no. Like, you need to understand the power and the ability that you have to say no, right? Like, that's one of the best ways that you can establish boundaries in your life is you get to choose when you say yes, and you get to choose when you say no. I'm reminded of Proverbs 27:6. It says this: wounds from a friend are better than many kisses from an enemy, right? And it just goes like this, like I'll take a well thought out no from somebody so much easier than I will someone who's like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'm in. I'm like, don't you want to think about it? No, I'm in. Don't you want to pray about it? No, I'm in, man. I'll go wherever you go. Like, I'm for you. I'm behind you. Like, okay, cool. But count the cost. Think about it, because here's what I know. Is a well thought out no is better for me than a hasty yes, and a guilt driven yes. Like, if I ask you to serve in Kid Life, and you say yes because you're riddled by guilt of, well, somebody's got to take care of our kids, right? Like, if you give me that yes, I know that is a seed of bitterness waiting to bear fruit in our relationship. And so again, I'll take a no from somebody that has really thought and prayed about it quicker than I'll take a yes that eventually is going to lead to tension in our relationship and possibly bitterness in your heart. And so one of the best things you can do to set boundaries is to use your no purposely, because the more you use no, the bigger your yes can become. So if you tell me no in Kid Life, but you're serving your heart out on worship, man, awesome. If you say no to real life, but you say yes to Kid Life, and you're able to give more time, more of your thoughts, more of your attention, more of your focus, man, that's the power of boundaries at work. It allows you to own, control, and be responsible for something in a purposeful way. The second thing is this, that I want you to own, to realize that are inside your boundaries are your feelings, right? Like, you got to understand that feelings are not something that happen to you. Feelings are not something that are immediately, spontaneously, and uncontrollably triggered by your environment and circumstances. I was in therapy with my wife because we do that every once in a while just to continue to check under the engine, kind of work on our relationship. And this is the craziest thing, is that did you know that it's not it's not circumstances and then feelings come immediately after the circumstances. There's a middle area, something that I feel in here that actually causes the feelings that I experience. And it's this. It's what is the story that I'm telling myself about the circumstances. Because if I'm telling myself a story of I'm a victim and, oh man, they're just asking so much of me, well, that's going to trigger a very different emotion than if somebody asks me to do something and I'm like, this is the greatest opportunity ever. And that's the story I'm telling myself, because that's going to trigger a great celebratory celebration, right? So again, own the story that you're telling yourself about the circumstances, which triggers the emotions. The other thing about your feelings is that often, more than not, your feelings are actually triggered by something from your past. And so you also get to own your feelings, recognizing that they're not triggered by your circumstances. But your circumstances are usually triggering something from your past that you have not dealt with. And that's where the emotion comes from. So you can own your feelings by owning your past. By, if you need to, getting with a professional and unpacking it and processing what actually took place in your life, so that now you get a different outcome in feelings when the same circumstance arises. So again, boundaries, very simple, just a property line. It tells me what's mine and what's others, what I own, what I control, and what I'm responsible for. God says to guard my heart, to be careful about what I let in, because from my heart will flow the entire direction of my life. Two practical things that I'm inviting you to do today. Number one, use your no to set boundaries, because the more no's, the bigger your yes. And then second is to recognize that your feelings, they are not caused by somebody else or something else. Your feelings are smack dab in the middle of your boundary line, your property line, and you are responsible for them, and you own them, control them. And so hope this helps. Bye.